But let me go ahead and introduce our incredible next panel of women. So I have joining us Jen Bawden, who is a dear friend and has expanded the aperture in my mind of what I believe is possible. She's a fashion designer. She's a best-selling author. She's a skier that has been nationally ranked and was considered for the Olympics. And when she told me all of the things that she's done, a macroeconomics expert, I thought either this woman is just putting me on or I get to really rethink about what's possible for me in my life. And I'm so happy to share with you that it's the latter. She is truly a Renaissance woman. Following Jen Bawden, I have Dr. Adrienne Denese. Dr. Adrienne Denese is the founder of Skin Science. She is all about creating clean beauty and being able to put products on our face that are not only good for our skin, but good for our bodies. And last but not least, I have Stephanie de Sarchaga Bilbao, who is an incredible woman. I can't wait for you to read each one of their chapters, who is really leading the charge in thinking about how we bring people together and create connection and community and conversation and restoration globally across many nations. So I'd like to welcome all of you, Jen, Dr. Adrienne, and Stephanie. Beautiful. So wonderful to see you here. Hello. Hello. Stephanie, let me go ahead and start with you. And I'll just remind both you and Dr. Adrienne that you are muted. So just go ahead and unmute yourself now that you're in the broadcast. Stephanie, you've been on a journey yourself, personally, professionally. Talk to me about what this journey has been like for you and how you've sort of grown in your own resilience and perspectives over the course of the time of writing your story and publishing this book together.
Wow. So much has changed, since being able to really dig deep and share my story and hopefully give people tools so that they can find their own inner resilience and warrior leader inside themselves. For much of my life, I was not able to really share my story because it is not only my story, it is the story of millions of other people who were affected and their history was suppressed. And so to be able to do that now with such wonderful co-authors is simply life-changing, and just shifting the energy of really putting it down and having incredible response. I had no idea it would have such an incredible response. So I'm not sure if I answered your question, but that's the short term of how things have changed.
Yeah, I think it's a beautiful answer. And I think one of the things for me that's so striking about your chapter, where you actually talk about initially sort of walking away from this legacy that you had through your family in Spain. And your chapter really takes us on a journey where there's a beautiful arc that moves from walking away from your legacy to embracing it. And I think that is such an incredibly powerful universal message for all of us, because how often have each one of us had something in our lives that we think, you know what, I need to leave that behind. I need to create a new story for myself, only to find that that legacy follows us until we're able to embrace it and ultimately learn the lessons that we're meant to.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately for me, it was the legacy was not something that I could really move forward in the beginning because my mother had passed when I was 11, and my grandparents were both dead by the time I was a teenager, and I was cut off from so many of the family and things, and I was unfortunately in a very complicated home situation because my father was left a widow and he was dealing with his own demons. And so I made the choice that my legacy was not going to be a victim, And that's just a personal sovereignty choice that didn't really have to do anything to do with my background, besides the fact that my background instilled in me to never give up and to always just try to find the next right best thing to do. And for me, that was understanding that money is actually a wonderful force in the world, that it is not evil, that it can give you personal sovereignty. And so I got my first job as a teenager, and I decided to take care of myself, put myself through college, everything. And in doing that, I tried, as you were saying, to not deal with the other larger legacy that I was born into. Many people are born into circumstances they can't control. And for me, I just kept thinking somebody else can do it better. There's somebody else that can move this legacy better than me. Like, God is
I'm laughing because haven't we all said that? Haven't we all said, certainly there must be someone who can do this better? And then all of a sudden we're like, oh, it's me.
Oh, no. Yeah. Like, no, this cannot be just me. There's somebody. And I went through years of that. I took my personal sovereignty and created strong businesses, lost and found businesses, just really worked on me personally. Because I did know in the back somewhere, like the tap on the shoulder that everyone can get, that there was more to it. And that I was going to need to embrace my legacy, find a way into embracing a complex situation, just the way that I had gotten myself out of a very bad domestic situation. And for me, it was just starting to listen to the stories of other people, of the people that weren't just my family, that had been hunted and persecuted. And that's really what I drew strength on, is I was like, they need to be heard. These people need to be made whole. And so I'm now going to use those skills and things that I built over the years to try to help that in some way. And just like anyone else who's tried a big thing out of their comfort zone, it didn't work right away. I am not going to say that I reached out to people and they were super excited to hear from me in the beginning. They were surprised that I was alive, but then they were like, what do we do? How are we going to reconcile all of this together? And I realized that, you know, my, as you would call it, in sort of, I guess, book storyline almost, and that's how life is, my hero's journey was not just about me. It needed to be about all of them and all of us together moving forward and bringing more light into the world. And so that's what I've really, really focused on. And that's why this book was so important. When you asked me to consider a chapter, I was really, really excited to finally do that.
That's amazing. And, you know, I love the parallels that you shared, that part of your healing and sort of deeper understanding of who you are and the culture that you come from, the ancestors, the people, really started with listening to the stories of other people as a way to ground yourself into your own story, but also to expand the aperture of your understanding of other people's experience. Isn't that an incredible sort of parallel and synergy to also what we're doing with our book, Triumphs of Transformation? So Dr. Adrienne, I'm going to come over to you. You are a woman like Stephanie that I deeply admire. In fact, I have one of your products right here. I am always getting compliments on my skin. People say, you look so good for 75, Taryn. No, I'm just kidding. I'm not saying 75, but
75 maybe.
You know, you are a woman. You talk about in your chapter, you grew up in communist Hungary. And
Yeah.
I just want to position this for people right now, because like Stephanie, the arc and the journey that you've been on is just so powerful and beautiful to me. And it is such a testament to the fact that we are not defined by where we start in life. We are defined by the trajectory and the growth and the journey that we are all currently on. And so for you, it started in communist Hungary. Your job was to go to the store on the days that bread was available and wait in line and to bring the bread back for your family. And that made you feel useful. It made you feel valuable. It made you feel like you were contributing. And you began by making soap with your grandmother and began to learn about skincare in this way. So I don't want to spoil it. I want you to tell us, Dr. Adrienne, today you have your own skincare line. You are a leading purveyor and expert on skincare on QVC. Tell us a little bit about your story and what's happened since you stood in line to get bread for your family, and where are you today?
Wow, really what a wonderful opportunity. Thank you very much for letting me present my life story here. So I started out in communist Hungary, as you know, and it was a very highly aggressive environment, as you can imagine. You were not allowed to do anything. As a child, it was actually good to grow up there because the country was very much focused on academia. School was taken very, very seriously. I learned so much more in high school in Hungary than I learned in college in the United States, as it happens. But anyway, so I came to this country. I was 23 years old and I had exactly $40 in my pocket. And I thought, oh, that's a lot of money. I'll be fine here. I arrived at the airport and it turned out that, in fact, the cab ride was exceeding $40. So I said, well, that's a bit of a problem. I had all sorts of odd jobs for a while until I received a scholarship, a full scholarship to Cornell Medical College, and that was a real breakthrough in my life. After I got my acceptance letter from school, I felt that yes, things are going to go right. I was always very studious. My grades were always basically perfect. I think the worst grade I ever got was a 97 out of 100. So I was a very good student.
You've been a high achiever since the very beginning.
I just was. There was really no choice. I felt that coming from such a disadvantaged situation as from an oppressed communist country, the only way for me to excel was through studies, through academia, through physics and medicine and mathematics and everything, languages. So I was really fascinated. And to this day, I absolutely love to study. I spent at least maybe 4 or 5 hours each and every day listening to podcasts in medicine. I mean, serious medical lectures for doctors. So it's this passion will never subside. Anyway, so I finished medical school, started a medical practice. It was anti-aging medicine. I figured that there must be somebody who's interested. I was on the Upper East Side between Fifth and Madison, and I figured that, well, there must be some people who are interested in not getting older in this neighborhood. So anyway, I started there and developed a skincare line very early on because whenever I treated a patient, I did hormone replacement for the most part and functional medicine. Whenever I had an interview with the patient, the last question of the patient was, well, and Dr. Denese, what do I do for my skin? So I kind of felt pressured and obligated to come up with something really meaningful for your skin. So I started a skincare line. And then after a few months, it was very successful actually. After a few months' time, QVC knocked on my door. They asked if I would come on air. I said, no way, I cannot possibly be on television. I would just die in fear probably, so I couldn't handle it. But then they kept coming back, and I said, all right, it would be fine, just come, let's see what happens. And what happened was that I sold out. And then I sold out again and again and again. It became an incredible success. I became one of their highest performers ever. I've been on QVC now 22 years at this point, and patients love it. They just love it. They find my skincare so helpful, so meaningful for their skin. Now, the key to my skincare is clean beauty. That's number one. clean, clean, clean. That's incredibly important to me. But the key to my skincare is that I give very high percentages of the active ingredients, really much higher than most of everyone else, even very expensive luxury skincare lines. I put more active ingredients than anybody else. It drives my prices high, but I don't really care because I can hand you a jar and you will never live without that jar ever again. You will just have to have it because it's that good. It's very visible, visibly meaningful to your skin almost within a few days' time. So that's really the basis of my success, that I created a product line that is so important, so powerful in terms of active ingredients and the percentage of the active ingredients, that you just don't want to live without it once you try it.
Dr.
So
Adrienne, I'm
it
going
was a
to
long
jump
journey.
in, if
Yes,
that's
sorry.
okay, on that note, because I am such an admirer of the skincare that you've created. And
Thank you
we
very
have
much.
a couple of minutes to just transition over to Jen Bawden, who's joined us. And
Yes.
one of the reasons that I wanted to bring the three of you together is that you are all creators. You're all way showers. You're all inventors and entrepreneurs who have reinvented yourselves, invented products, invented new ways of being and living in the world. And so, Jen, part of my introduction for you was to talk about you as a Renaissance woman, a woman who, in your chapter, you talk about growing up in a profoundly abusive household that would have perhaps stunted the growth of so many, kept people from reaching out into the world and trying something new. And yet you became a nationally ranked competitive, internationally ranked competitive skier, a fashion designer, a best-selling author, a macroeconomist, and so many more accomplishments. Jen, you are so wonderful at being a mentor and bestowing upon young women in particular, but women and men, a bit of knowledge, a bit of guidance about how they can look at the world. So, Jen, for those that are listening today, what would your advice be for people maybe that have gone through something difficult but aspire to be so much more than they are today? What would you share with our audience?
Firstly, I would say believe in yourself no matter what anybody else says, no matter what happens in your family. Yes, I was for 10 years severely abused every day, and so were my brothers. And I held strong, and I knew that I didn't deserve it. And I knew that could do big things if I wanted to. Every day I was told how stupid I was, that I would never do anything. And as my head was banged against the wall, and I knew deep inside, and I stuck to my guns, that I can do whatever I want to do. This is just temporary. And I think really sticking to my guns and believing in myself, believing that I would get through this, is half the battle. I think the other part of the battle, it's really important, is besides trusting in yourself, you have to find the right people, surround yourself with the good people, with people that do believe in you. They're not always easy to find, but don't listen to the naysayers. They will tell you everything you can't do. And I would always say, just because in your brain, in your head, say to yourself, just because you can't do it doesn't mean I can't do it. So instead of believing them, I always tried to let them know that, how do you know I won't be able to do it? How do you know I won't be able to reach my goals? Maybe you're putting your expectations on me. Just because you can't reach your goals doesn't mean I can't reach my goals. So I think that's one really important milestone.
I think that's an incredible place for us to transition to our next panel. And Jen, I love that you shared with us to always bet on ourselves and to never throw in the towel, and that someone else's opinion of us does not need to become our reality. Jen, Dr. Adrienne, Stephanie, I want to thank you for joining us this afternoon. And it has been so lovely to learn from you, to have you here on this broadcast.